Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Yida as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on YouTube. This is titled心狠手辣. We're going to listen through it from start till finish. We're going to hear what we think. Let's go. You can kind of tell from the guitar tone that's a little bit old school, eh? Late 90s. Just that chorusy guitars, you know. Great to have an instrumental intro though with those lead guitars. Fantastic use of interesting chords. Fantastic singer, by the way. Tremendous technique with both the range of expression and the way that she's communicating with the audience, and also just the use of the notes and the different vocal runs and the dynamic range as well. It's really sensational. And that transition to an alternate lead there with the drums being so consistent, it's just a really smart move. I just want to confirm something really quickly. Yeah, so the musician's name is Jiang Kui, singing心狠手辣. Just wanted to mention that as well, you know. I mean, it's just really elegantly phrased. Great sort of rockish kind of contrast to her kind of more somber, popish intonations and balladish intonations. So we got a similar intensity to the previous time round. See, it's those kind of switch ups with the drums. We got Jiang Kui kind of belting more of these really interesting vocal runs up in the top to higher range of her voice, kind of changing up the way she's phrasing her hook lines. But it's also just switching up the drum grooves there. The lead guitars re-entering and sort of spicing things up. There's a lot to appreciate here, and I think a lot of effort's been put in to make the song interesting, despite the the safeness of some of these compositions and these structural choices. Fantastic use of the lead on top as an extra layer during this last time. Wonderful. No, I think that was awesome. That was really well handled. Really stoked with the way that we approached things there. In general, I thought that the vocal performance was incredible. I liked the way the guitar, bass drums, the strings, and any other sort of synth pads came together. We'll talk about that more in the conclusion, but we got the lyrics first, kindly provided by Yida, so thank you for that. So here we are, with Jiang Hui and心狠手辣. Smart people can be confused. When I give my heart, I am not happy. Change of heart never brings happiness. Oh, I'd give anything for you, everything I am righteously. Now I'm in pain, who's with me? Oh, I get it. So this is a love song. It's of love lost. It's of the pain of heartbreak, that kind of thing. I'm not ready for you to leave. The feelings of the past have faded and loneliness is my last piece of luggage. I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to what Jiang Hui is talking about here. Jiang Hui. Why are you so cruel to me? We had a deal, but now you've changed your mind. Dried up tears won't let you love me again. Well, there you go. I think it's very visceral now. The imagery is very clear and easy to understand. I think the storytelling there is great. Finally, why are you so cruel to me? What started out as sweetness has turned into torture. If the tears run out, will you come back to love me? See, I think that's tremendous. I think that's incredible songwriting. And to lyricism, it's just so very kind of, I suppose, relatable that you can't really sort of be alienated by it. But it's also so personal to Jiang Hui that you can't really blame it for being, I suppose, similar theme to a lot of other, like it's her take on it, even if there's such, relativity to those experiences. But yeah, great story. We'll go talk about that in the conclusion. And yeah, welcome to my review of this track from an actor named Jiang Hui, titled心狠手辣, if I'm not mistaken. Apologies for any mispronunciation there. So I spoke about what I thought the track was in the lyric section, but if you've skipped straight to the conclusion, basically I think this track is about someone who was just having a really difficult time dealing with the fact that they gave their heart to someone else and that person doesn't want them anymore, and they're feeling lonely and like they maybe sort of like wasted their energy on this situation, and there's a lot of pain associated with the separation from that other. So that's kind of what we're talking about with this one. Again, it's a story that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. I think that's effective songwriting, give the people what they want. But again, it also seems very authentic. There's a lot of pain and expression from the singer Jiang Hui in this. Like, we're really selling it. We are not hesitating. We are not hesitating to be completely blunt about how we feel throughout this. I think that the way that we sang was great. We had really solid head and chest voice vocal technique there. There was a lot of dynamic range to the performance. We came down a little softer bits, kind of bring ourselves up with the full kind of like some occasional belts there with the choirs in the background later on, really kind of making the singing section really wide there. The choirs were great and they harmonized really neatly on top. But there was just a lot of character to the main line parts, and I think that there was enough range there with the different melodies and harmonies throughout the various verse, bridge, and chorus sections to keep this track interesting and intriguing throughout. I think that despite the accessibility of the story, again, it's Jiang Hui's take on it that makes it unique, and I appreciate that effort there. It's really cool. It's really believable. It doesn't sound like that. This seems like a really solid track. You know, at 5 minutes, I think it was like, yeah, 4 minutes 55 for this song. And that is it's quite a long song. So for us to have figured out how to make that compelling with various instrumental parts, bring in again those drums, the bass, guitars, the various different types of guitar tones within that, as well as the strings. There was probably some keys and synths and pads and stuff we had there. There was just a wide variety of elements, including that guitar solo in that like later half there. It riffed really nicely on top of the existing melody lines there, the main concept, whilst also providing some interesting sort of bluesy pentatonic phrasings there with a bit of distortion to kind of really bring us back to the 80s and 90s where a lot of this music was huge. You know, like the reverbs, distortion-soaked parts. I thought that the guitar arpeggios, though, they were really interesting to listen to. They sounded great. They were nice and bright without being too much. It was a sad track, even when we were trying to put a bit more sort of oomph into it in that hook part. But the guitars never sort of took away from what we were trying to accomplish. Well, you know, like they added to it in a way where, again, it sounded sad, but they were really beautiful to listen to, should I say. The performance on the strings was really, it was effective. And it was explored at the fretboard. We didn't just phone it in by strumming some chords. We explored, and we had a lot of purpose in that. The drums were fantastic. I liked how solid and how safe they were in the sense that we could rely on them to sort of bring that slow groove, that slow movement that it really kind of carried the weight, the emotional brevity of it throughout the entire piece there. It felt like we had this on our shoulders, that sort of that dread, that sadness there that came from the motif and the story, and the drums with some variations, some occasional sort of exploration of the kit in regards to like toms and stuff like that. It was mostly cymbal work for a lot of it. We had 8th and 16th note breaks, and we can clearly play the kit. You know, there was some really fast movements there and transitions, but ultimately it was to provide a sense of foundation for a lot of the mid to higher range bits that needed to have that sort of focus. The bass was nice and poignant in the low end, very majestic in the way it sort of stuck with the root notes of the chord progressions, which were not typical. We might have even had some parallel majors there, or occasionally we had like a kind of, that last chord of the verse there going into the bridge there was very kind of certain and intense, and it kind of captures you and makes you kind of go, oh, what's going to happen next? And that's phenomenal songwriting there. It's not overcomplicated. It's enough to instill that feeling into a listener and get them over the line to the next part. And before you know it, that's the entire song. But yeah, no, the bass was fantastic, supportive in that low end. The guitar, the strings we had there were kind of a sub-layer there, kind of providing again a sort of pad-like essence for the track, filling in that mid-range, filling in those harmonies on the sides there, the overarching part. Also, the strings are kind of, they sound a little bit miserable, I suppose. Like we're really kind of wallowing in it. In a way, we're trying to sort of get ourselves out of it. But that, again, strings grab that weight there. They're gorgeous, but they're also very solemn. And coupled with the guitar, bass, and drums, I think that was very effective. I'm sure we had some pads or some synthy parts occasionally. If we didn't, forgive me, they're another instrument, I'm confusing things. But when they were there, they were like kind of bright and sparkly there, and ultimately served the purpose of adding a nicer contrast to some of the more acoustic or straightforward elements. But bearing in mind, of course, that the guitars they're effects laden, and they had a bit of chorus and a bit of reverb on them and stuff like that, even without distorted bits there. But it was a track where I think it was soaked again in those reverb and kind of distortion and kind of fantasy effects there, where if it would have been too raw in the post, it would have been a little bit too sort of like dire and in your face. I'm glad that we softened things a bit with the effects change in the various instruments, both in post and during the performance itself. And bearing in mind, that the structure and the instruments chosen, the theme itself for the track is really, it was one where like it sounded like we were almost a little bit like we didn't want to seem like we were destitute. We were almost kind of trying to push back against those feelings and trying to sort of like scream out and shout out about these emotions and feelings that we had there, to let everyone know, to let that person know how they made us feel. It was tantamount to kind of you hear someone like in their room sort of like screaming out in the pain that they felt, but it was sophisticated because the way it was sung and performed, and it had a sense of grace and maturity to it that I can really appreciate and respect. Ultimately, the harmonies chosen weren't complicated, the rhythms were palatable, and the structure, again, was easy to sort of follow along to with enough change to keep things interesting. It's simply just the fact that we had a singer that could sing in a way that matched the tone of the triads that we had in the harmonies, that matched the slower tempo, that carried us through a range of different sort of like the range of emotional sort of roller coasters that we're going through. And we carried it throughout until the end, and there wasn't a filler and there was not a note out of place. The performance was tight. But it's simply just the final part where, the studio grade, it was commercial grade, man. The studio production was fantastic. I really appreciate the work put in to get the vocals sounding nice and clear and pristine in the mix without being over-affixed or over-processed. The guitars, bass, drums, strings, synth, whatever else, atmospheric sublayers, all those were nicely niched in the frequency spectrum. There were no resonant frequencies and stuff surrounded you in the stereo field, so the music was all around the headphones, and it was nice and lush and diverse. There was dynamic range, so things were not the same loudness all the time, but it was still nice and loud without pumping. So the bass compression limiting were handled. It was expertly handled. I'm really impressed with this effort from Jiang Hui titled Sing Hen Shou La. That's the track and artist, the other way around, and hopefully you enjoyed this track. I thought it was a stellar first impression. And if you enjoyed this track, please do check out their various social media. And if you enjoyed this track, please do go check out their various social medias. And I'm sure this will be on YouTube or other sort of digital streaming platforms. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.